Coming out today on Eagle Eyes on Tech, Meta is laying off 1,000 of their employees, specifically from the metaverse. Experts say OpenAI will run out of money in a year and a half. We'll get into the details of what that is going to end up meaning. AI GPUs can now be sold to China, but at a substantial cost. And we now know the Steam machine price, or at least a Steam machine price, has been leaked. All that and more coming today on Eagle Eyes on Tech. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Good to this Eagle Eyes on Tech guy. I'm Eagle Falcon. We have substantially less to talk about this week than last week. But that's the case after every CES week, right? There's always a big drop off because CES is massive for the tech space. Even though this CES felt there's every single CES product had just this looming cloud of, yeah, that's great, but will it be available? Are we able to purchase it with money instead of kidneys? And will you be able to make it, period, because of the RAM shortages? But this week we got plenty to look at. We got some glimmers of hope for those looking forward to the AI bubble finally bursting. We have some information in that regard. But first, we have this little bit of, I don't know what the correct word is for this. Concern? We're going to go with concern. A new exploit that exists for Android devices is now out. So Android has a feature called Google Fast Pair. All right. This is meant to mimic Apple's feature of just having an Apple Bluetooth device next to your iPhone and they pair instantly. Okay. However, an exploit has been found that will allow an attacker, granted attacker that's near you, the ability to go ahead and make a connection to a Bluetooth device and be able to gain control of its functions. So they could do some very elaborate practical jokes, such as whispering horrifying things in your ear, like AI, or far more dangerously, can hack into the mic of your device and start listening in on you. And that right there is the far, far, far more dangerous component in all this. So what do you do? Well, already devices are pushing out updates. So if you're one of those that has like a Bluetooth set of headsets or a Bluetooth earpiece like this one here that supports Google Fast Pair, and you notice it has a firmware update, and you're just like, do I really need a firmware update for my headphones? That seems silly. That seems really, really silly. Take it. You're going to want to take it. Get the update. You are definitely going to want it. And that's pretty much where this is going to go. Just update your devices. Updates that fix this vulnerability are already rolling out. So update your Bluetooth devices. It's that simple. There's no secret to this. I like how there's no secret to the metaverse. It's not popular. And thus Meta is laying off 1,000 employees from the Reality Labs, also known as their metaverse division. Remember when Facebook went ahead, announced their name change, and said the metaverse is the next big thing? Everyone's going to get on board with the metaverse. It's going to be the new hotness, the new thing. It's going to be the next advancement in technology. Here we are. Look at that. It turns out the average consumer didn't want it. And now Meta is doing everything in its power to cut costs as much as possible. And in fact, I'm hearing from some people that certain features of Quest Metaverse headsets are starting to be phased out. Wow. It looks like the metaverse was nowhere near the future that Meta thought it was. But that's like a one-off thing. We've never seen this happen before. A thing seems incredibly popular. The overwhelming majority of people continue to say that it's definitely the future forever. It doesn't take off because the consumers actually don't want it, because no one can explain why they need it. And then the whole thing goes under. Man, I wonder if there's any sort of modern equivalent to that. Can you think of a modern equivalent to that? Can you? Oh, man, Meta is, you know what now? I originally said that I would never call Meta, and I've like slowly leaned towards it, only because I'm lazy and kept forgetting to call Meta Facebook, and it just kept showing up in front of my face. I've slipped quite a few times about X in the same way, and I gotta like get back on track of calling X by its dead name. Gotta make sure that I keep dead naming Twitter. I mean X. But yeah, now Meta looks really stupid, doesn't it? Are you gonna change your name back to Facebook? Ooh, or maybe you call yourself Llama based after your AI model. Ooh, there's a good one right there. But yeah, never seen a modern equivalent to that. Never, ever. Meanwhile, SpaceX actually does get the FCC permission to go launch 7,500 more Starlink satellites to go ahead and expand the Starlink network some more. Now, this actually doubles the number of satellites that SpaceX already has in place for Starlink. They already have 7,500 Gen 2 satellites in place. This would then double it. I don't know how many Gen 1s are still up there, or if they have taken steps to take down the Generation 1 satellites. That I'm not 100% sure on. But man, I'll tell you what, frickin' of all the things that has been kind of hit and miss with Elon, and I'm not an Elon fan, for crying out loud, he went ahead and made an N64 pickup truck, and unfortunately made a trend to go ask me, hey tech nerd, when are you gonna get a Cybertruck? Oh, I'm sorry, hey tech nerd who also drives truck, when are you getting a Cybertruck? And my answer to that is, that's not a truck. I want no part of that truck. None. Ever. Someone in chat said that the Gen 1s decrease over time as they naturally deorbit. I mean, I guess that's also fair. Does that also mean we're littering space with deorbiting satellites? Is space just going to eventually look like a Chicago highway with all of our littered satellites everywhere? Oh, right. They deorbit into the Earth and then burn up, as opposed to out. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, SpaceX expanding even further. SpaceX has been widely successful, and the number of people that is just like a household name to is actually insane. And for a lot of people who live more nomadic lifestyles, SpaceX is just a godsend. Not only that, but SpaceX has been a godsend to disaster areas too. So yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, unless there's some deep, dark controversy, it does seem to be that Starlink, at the very least, is getting everything right. Now let's talk about things that Elon isn't getting right. Let's talk about X and Grok. I just said I was going to keep making sure I call X Twitter, and then I failed. Although realistically, we really should keep X and Twitter out of this, because the whole thing stems from Grok, and we need to go ahead and actually have that layer of separation, because Grok is not Twitter. Grok is its own entity that is integrated into Twitter. But you can use Grok without Twitter. And recently, Grok has gotten a lot of heat because Twitter went ahead and made it absurdly simple to create, and I'm going to keep using this phrase, whether you can disagree with it all you want, but it varies based on your location, questionably legal pictures generated from Grok. Images that are extremely distasteful and disrespectful at best and illegal at worst. And the severity strongly depends on the location. We talked about this last week as well. And now the UK is in fact probing X over this scandal. Now, here's the fun part though. Remember I said you need to go ahead and imagine there is a separation between Grok and Twitter? Independent investigation are going on at Grok Imagine, the standalone version of Grok. I haven't gone in and tried to experiment with this myself, mostly because I'm poor, but also the report has been saying that it is absurdly easy to trick Grok into producing CSAM. And quite frankly, I really don't feel like trying to do exactly that and then end up in trouble as just part of an investigation. I'm sure you can understand my hesitation for that for an infinite number of reasons. So while the UK is probing Twitter about this, if the tech illiterate politicians in the United Kingdom do discover that in fact Grok is a separate entity and it is far easier and far worse in its standalone version than it is on Twitter, you'll want to get some popcorn because it is going to be incredible the amount of pressure that is brought to Grok and also how quickly it is banned in many places. Now here's the thing. XAI has come out and said that Grok has now been modified to block undressing images in places where it's illegal. This is a very good first step. You have 19 more steps to go. I'm sorry, you do. So here's the problem, all right? The big problem that Grok has is not only the fact that anyone could link Grok a picture of a real person and then command it to undress them, which already is, a huge problem and very illegal in certain parts of the world, should be illegal in every part of the world, but is illegal in some parts of the world. But you could also command Grok to, Grok would do it regardless of the age of the subject. And that was the big problem. So if you're in an area that technically it's not illegal to create AI generated images of someone in a position that is without their consent, you can in fact still create illegal material because the fix does not cover that. Let's all go ahead and give one big, long, slow clap to Grok for this massive oversight. Make sure to have it be very, very, very sarcastic. So yeah, you have one small step down. You have many more to go. And no, I'm sorry. As much as I do appreciate freedom of speech, you cannot use expression of free speech as a shield this time because you are actively violating the law. Sorry, it ain't gonna fly this time. Honestly, the fact that this sort of thing could even happen in the first place really does just show how half-baked Grok is in the way it functions, which is also why companies like Apple went ahead and picked not Grok for their AI when they are looking at AI upgrades to existing products. Apple went ahead and announced that, they have confirmed that yes, they are using Google's Gemini AI for its big Siri update. This would be the equivalent of the Alexa Plus update, where it's now using generative AI to go ahead and do a lot of its thinking. It's now going to use Gemini for that. To which I say, good on you. All right. Top notch. We'll have to see how well it works, because I'm not going to I've been using the Alexa Plus for a while now, right? it has been hit and miss as to how useful it's been and how unhelpful it has been. It has been a literal roller coaster. So I actually would be very, very curious how well Apple's version goes ahead and cooperates with people. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Microsoft, on the other hand, is looking at the back end side of things, building out their data centers. And they have vowed in a community first AI infrastructure that they are going to pay the full electricity costs for its data centers, refusing to seek local property tax reductions. The wording on this feels loaded, doesn't it? Paying full electricity costs for its data centers and refusing to seek local property tax reductions. That doesn't include any other tax breaks, though. It's just property tax reductions. It's also not talking about what if the energy provider has to go ahead and make like 6 or 7 brand new power plants to go ahead and fulfill the needs of the ultra dense data center. And because I want to go ahead and think ahead to, when the whole AI bubble does finally pop, what is going to end up happening to all these data centers? And then the overly overbuilt electrical grid only on these isolated areas where these AI data centers were built. What's going to happen to all that? Are we really going to go ahead, build a massive power plant in a year, watch it get used for 6 months, and then Microsoft has to shut it down, or the power company has to shut down the plant because Microsoft moved out, because the data center is now unprofitable, because AI has yet to generate a profit? Like, it's hard not to point this out. No AI company has yet to have their AI divisions be anything other than a drain on themselves, their investors, or their parent or their parent company. In fact, heck, the amount of wattage that these massive data centers are taking up to go ahead and produce actual slop is insane. Who is to say that by the time you build these things out, these horribly inefficient, massive terawatt per hour data centers, and then efficiency comes along with NPUs, drastically reduces the power consumption, and what an entire server rack of AI nodes can do, I can do on my phone, locally, without the cloud, or can be done on my laptop. Heck, people have already gotten large language models to work in a home lab with only 2 GPUs, 2 air-cooled GPUs. It doesn't take a genius to realize this cannot continue. This is unsustainable. And it's not just me saying this cannot continue. How's this? Analysts are saying that OpenAI could run out of money by mid-2027 at the rate they are going. Heck, what do you think is going to happen with AI when NVIDIA launches their new higher end, more efficient, more powerful AI GPUs? And now all of a sudden, all these data centers with all these GPUs are now inefficient and obsolete. Remember the analogy I've made before? How the whole AI thing seems like a gold rush? And instead you have people that are just suspiciously just selling shovels for the gold rush rather than helping to dig for gold themselves. That's going to be the only people in the end who come out ahead. The companies that sold the shovels, or in this case, company, singular. It's going to be NVIDIA. You all went ahead, spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars on shovels, and you have produced $100 worth of gold. Well, at some point, you've burned through all the money you earned on the gold and have to wonder, what are you going to do with all these shovels? And that, my friends, is a very, A very good question, isn't it? We're going to take our first break here. When we come back, I got more AI stories to talk about, including what's going to happen with NVIDIA GPUs being shipped over to China for the sake of AI. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. There is some good news, potentially, for those of you who still use Microsoft Windows and hate AI. An early build shows that those that use the professional version of Windows 10 will have the ability to disable Copilot from their systems if you are a system administrator of the computer. If confirmed true, Microsoft may in fact make millions of dollars from people upgrading from Windows Home to Windows Professional to uninstall the Copilot tool they spent billions developing. Do not quote me on those numbers. I pulled them out of my butt, but they're probably not too far off. Honestly, this is the best Windows news we've had in a long time. Because, man, Microsoft Windows has not been in a very good place at all and continues to push out update after update after update that just seems to make the operating system worse and worse and worse. We were actually talking during the break about the difference between generative AI and general AI and how generative AI is a cool concept, but it's not really ready for prime time. And Lord, Microsoft proves that it's not ready for prime time. Copilot has got to be one of the worst mainstream AI tools out there. And the worst part is we know they use it internally because they have admitted they use it internally. And then on top of all that, it just continues to just absolutely be one of the worst things that the company uses internally to develop Windows. Again and again and again, Microsoft just continues to disappoint. Maybe one day it'll not disappoint us, but that day is not today. The US has now approved the sale of NVIDIA and advanced AI chips over to China. Now, these are specifically the highest end, what would it be? B100? Is that what we're up to now? Whatever the highest end AI chips that normally aren't in a card format. They are in a different like mezzanine kind of form factor. Like these are the highest end ones that NVIDIA would be able to ship out. Now, China is already kind of openly saying that, oh, we're not going to buy any of them. I think that's about 50% blustering and 50% trying to actually get their companies to only invest in China, not in US. Now, someone in chat asked the correct question. What is the payoff to the current administration? About 25% in the form of tariffs. Not gonna lie, I would have guessed 35. But 25% of 10K or however much these GPUs actually are, still a substantial amount. So yeah, I guess that's not too surprising at all. And despite the fact that there's been very few tariffs I actually agree with, this one I can kind of understand in that regard. Zone in chat asks, national security or 25%? I think we're fine if China gets some massive power sucking GPUs to go ahead and power Deep Blue or whatever their heck their AI slop generator is. Because in the end, the promises of AI have been massively overblown. I think that much is almost fair to say at this point. Now, what's obnoxious is that after CES, after we go ahead and get are done with thinking about all the massive, big pretty robots folding laundry and cooking dishes and smart locks that are kind of okay, and all the fanciful potential sci-fi stuff showcased at CES. We have a cruel reality to deal with, and that's the fact that there is a global RAM shortage. So what is it going to mean for the average consumer? Obviously, RAM is now crazy expensive. People are now using DDR4 platforms, or even in some cases DDR3 platforms, to go ahead and get something off the ground so they can continue computing if their computer is broken, which isn't too surprising. But what about GPUs? Well, NVIDIA is bravely downscaling the amount of GPUs they're making and instead focusing on 8 gigabyte models of the RTX 5060. Rumors are saying they are lessening the amount of 5060 Ti and 5070 Ti models being produced. They're going to focus mostly on 8 gigabyte models of their GPUs. Now, NVIDIA has come out and said they're not doing that. Asus has come out and said that that's not true. We are stocking all of these. Here's the thing, though. The rumor doesn't say that the 5060 Ti and 5070 Ti's are being discontinued, because that's what the initial report said, and that has been now debunked. What has not been debunked, and what is currently being accepted as, the rumor with the most teeth, because it's not being refuted, is the fact these higher end GPUs that use more RAM are going to intentionally have the supply of them constrained, which I guess does make some sense. I mean, if there's already a shortage on the parts, why make matters worse by making cards that are now going to have to cost 5 to 6 to 7 times more that then nobody's going to buy because it's a bad deal? Why not just produce less of those cards? Yeah, it makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes sense. We'll have to wait and see how things go down, but I imagine I have no reason to not believe these rumors. Meanwhile, though, Gemini has introduced a new feature. It is called personal intelligence, a thing that does not exist for most pro AI diehards. And I want to stress diehards, the ones that believe AI is the future of everything and has no flaws. They definitely need some personal intelligence. I'm sorry, that joke was bad, but it was the easiest one I could make. So the whole point of Gemini personal intelligence is to just be an AI experience that focuses exclusively on you. This is meant to be what is referred to as an AI agent that helps do tasks specifically for you based on your personal data. This is definitely not, in any way, shape, or form, it is not a security nightmare waiting to happen. It's not that. It's absolutely not that. No. Why would you think it's that? That's crazy. Why would it be a problem at all? Yeah, we'll have to see how well it works. I personally predict this is just going to be a massive nightmare in security vulnerabilities. But we'll have to wait and see just how well that holds true. Getting back to the whole DRAM shortage, though. Micron now is coming out and trying to address the crucial exit backlash. So for those who are not in the know, Micron is one of the three biggest, and in most cases, pretty much the only DRAM manufacturers out there. Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung are basically the only three major manufacturers of DRAM. There are a handful of others that do make small amounts, but those three basically make the bulk of all the DRAM. Okay. Micron did have a consumer branch that sold first-party RAM to consumers. That was known as Crucial. Crucial has now been shut down. And of course, many consumers and many gamers are furious that Micron basically said, yeah, we're shutting down Crucial because AI data center demand is way bigger than consumer demand, and we have to go make this pivot. So what they're saying now, what they are saying is that this is not their fault. They are simply following the market. And by the way, the current state of DRAM could have this drought last at least until 2028. They're saying this not only based on market trends, but also Micron is in fact in the middle of constructing massive fabs. And these massive fabs may not be up and running until 2028. We actually talked about that to some degree last week, where Micron had openings planned all the way up to 2041 that are in various states of being built. And, you know, as much as I hate the fact that Crucial was shut down and one avenue of the average consumer getting decent RAM is gone, I kind of get where Micron's coming from. They're not entirely wrong. From a business standpoint, yeah, you got to follow the money. That's just common sense. And when push comes to shove, the average person's budget for RAM is 100 or 2, compared to a data center that doesn't mind buying them at a markup of 300% in massive bulk. And if your Crucial RAM already had some behind the scenes problems, yeah, I get the need to just say, you know what, let's just kill it because we're not going to be able to supply it anyway. Here's my only gripe. A few weeks before Crucial shut down, Crucial CEO and many of the staff were talking about with the general media public about how Crucial has all sorts of big things planned and all sorts of various new products coming down the pike for the future, and that Crucial plans on being a major partner in DIY for many years to come. Weeks before they were shut down. That is a bad look. And that should have never happened. But to hear that this could go for another 2 years, that's not good at all. There's no way to look around it. And quite frankly, I do hope the AI bubble does pop sooner rather than later. And the news that OpenAI might run out of money in a year and a half, as horrible as it sounds, it is good news for the sake of the AI bubble that continues to build and build and build and build and clearly cannot sustain itself. And it's not just RAM that's going up in price too. Server CPUs might be going up as high as 15%, all thanks to the building of more AI data centers. This, again, shouldn't really surprise anyone, and really the only people this really hurts are small businesses, really. Small businesses that want to go ahead and get a couple of servers for the office to share unified files, collab, and whatnot without having to rely on the cloud. So servers are more expensive. It's prohibited to build. So what are they going to do? They're going to switch to cloud-based systems. A future that may in fact come for most home users sooner rather than later. And man, I hope there is massive pushback. And actually, in that regards, I do predict that the whole renting a cloud computer and using it at home with a thin client, I don't think that's going to catch on nearly as well as people think here in the States, just because our internet infrastructure sucks. Like, it's decent enough to function in the way that it does, but it is not ready for that kind of bandwidth or that kind of latency. I mean, heck, freaking the North American version of Final Fantasy XIV continues to have one shared node DDoSed, and it shuts down the whole service for the entire country. Whew, that ain't good. That ain't good at all. So that may be a barrier in trying to get us all to switch to AI, or not AI, but cloud gaming computers. And I do hope that that does turn out to be the case. Keeping your fingers crossed, right? Speaking of computers that you're actually looking forward to, there is a leak for how much the Valve Steam Machine may cost. And this is from a leaked look at a Czech retailer. Are you ready for this? The Steam Machine is going to start, according to reports, based on a leak that may or may not be correct. It's going to start at $950 for 512 gigabytes of internal storage. $1,070 if you want 2 terabytes of storage. Oh, man. Whoo! That is going to be expensive. But I'm not too surprised. That's the worst part. The cost of RAM skyrocketing. The fact that this thing needs RAM twice, both for the CPU and the GPU. This is the worst possible time Valve could have released this product. And here they are suffering for it. There's just no way around it. That's the unfortunate truth. So, yeah, it just is what it is. Here's hoping that that when this all blows over, there'll be cheaper models that come out, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. I just wouldn't. I had a feeling they were going to be trying to target $700-800 base, and they would have to go north of $1,000 because of price increases. And yeah, I wasn't too far off, assuming these leaked prices are correct. However, most of us still have gaming PCs, right? So we don't need a Steam machine. We want a Steam machine to have that nice living room PC. It'd be a nice little experience, something to play with, something to tinker around with. It'd be nice to have, but we don't need it. Many of us already have gaming PCs with plenty of RAM. In fact, we could go sell 2 sticks of that RAM. All right, hear me out. You sell some of your RAM, not all of it, but some of it, and you can reserve a hotel room on the moon for the $250,000 you just got for selling your RAM. Yeah! What a great plan. Moon vacation, 250 grand. Now, I have no idea of the authenticity of this of this hotel room, or I assume the 250 grand includes a trip to the moon. But here's what I'll say. All right, if you pay this amount of money and you don't get a trip to the moon to stay at a lunar hotel, you know what? This is on you. You know what the weirdest part is? This isn't even my last burb story. This isn't even the weirdest story of the week. Mostly because it's probably a scam. But no, I've got a story that is even weirder. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the last burb, the last story of the day, the weirdest story of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, a new procedure can be done to make your skin grow green instead of taking a blood sample to identify various potential bodily problems. By injecting the body in certain places and watching the glow move around your body, they can determine in this experimental, still in research phase procedure whether you have low blood sugar, high blood pressure, various cases, and various other issues, diabetes, or slightly apoxic, all kinds of various things. Hypokalemia, hypo or hypernatremia. You know what the best part is, though? This isn't even the first time that they came up with this procedure. There is another use for this that is way, way funnier. But this is a family-friendly podcast, so we can't go ahead and talk about it. But I'll let your imagination wonder exactly what it is. Folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Eagle Eyes on Tech. Thank you so much for listening. And I do encourage you to check out my other works, youtube.com/EagleFalcon and twitch.tv/EagleFalcon. Take care, and I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye. Someone in chat said that they are disappointed that the entire podcast did not include a mention of headphone jacks or Chromebooks. The problem is that AI has completely replaced the need for headphone jacks because all thoughts are injected directly into your brain, whether you like it or not, all thanks to your RTX 6090 or whatever the heck we're up to now. And Chromebooks don't exist. Checkmate. I can't talk about headphone jacks or Chromebooks anymore. Chromebooks are dead and headphone jacks are obsolete because thoughts are injected straight into your brain thanks to AI. That's how insane everything is.